On this Donald Trump's 77th birthday after his arraignment and his pre-birthday celebration in Bedminster last night, what's up legally for the former president? Joining us live, legal analyst, attorney Andrew Lieb at Lieb at Law. Andrew, always good to have you here. Were there any comments that caught your ear from Trump at Bedminster that give us a view of what his defense will be like?
Bridget, thanks for asking. I have to tell you that Trump's comments play very well in political circles, but there's absolutely no way any judge, even Eileen Cannon, who's a Trump appointee, is going to allow him to play whataboutisms when it comes to Hillary and Biden and everyone else.
What do you mean? What do you mean specifically about what about those whataboutisms? What are they exactly?
What he likes to do is say that it's a selective prosecution and say these other people did these things and why aren't they being charged? And that's really what his speech, besides saying that he had the ability to declassify referencing a law that's not completely applicable to the case, that's really what his Bedminster speech is. And what the greatest hits are for him is, what about Hillary? What about Biden? Why aren't they going after them? They should go after them. But in a court of law, there's an objection called relevancy. You see, in a court, it's not about everyone else. It's only solely about Trump, and none of that's going to get in, Bridget.
I understand. Okay, so if you were defending him, how would you defend him? What would you focus on?
I'd start by making him stop talking. That would be first and foremost. And we've heard from a lot of attorneys that he's consulted with or are thinking about taking the case because he's still looking for lead counsel, that are saying that the moving target is what's so hard for them. So we'd start by the attorney running the show, not Trump. Number two, they're saying it's going to take about a year to get what's called discovery. Discovery means seeing all the people's documents, all the prosecutor's documents. And what the attorneys need to focus on, Bridget, is, are any of these documents and recordings obtained illegally? And can we suppress those documents? The goal is not to prove innocence, but to make it so the prosecutor can't prove guilt, Bridget.
Okay, and about the stop talking thing that you mentioned, how do you do that? Literally, how do you do that? Because we're expecting to see Donald Trump front and center out on the campaign trail.
Yeah, so I think the best way to look at it is the Wall Street Journal's editorial board that just came out saying that he's going to be focused, if he was to win, on retribution, not on doing conservative values. It's not a winning argument on the campaign trail to be talking about his case. He needs to be talking about what he's going to do for the country. So there's nothing wrong with him talking, but this is not the forum on the campaign trail to be talking about the grievances and how he's going to appoint his own special counsel to go after Biden. Every time he says something, I promise you, Jack Smith, the special counsel's office, is listening and recording it and thinking about how they're going to play it to the jury.
Although some political analysts might give you an argument there, Andrew, and say every time he goes out there on the campaign trail and portrays himself as a victim of the U.S. Justice Department, he's appealing to his supporters, his base.
I 100% agree that that's true, but his base is not the independents in the middle that win the election, first of all. And second of all, when you're facing 400 years, and I know if you look at sentencing guidelines, we're talking more about 17 and a half years there, and 136 in New York, your primary focus needs to be criminal defense, not campaigning. So I would say he can mention it and say, this is a witch hunt, but then move on to what he's going to do. His whole speech at Bedminster was about how this was the worst birthday present ever, getting indicted. And then he starts going after Hillary and going after Biden, the whataboutism that we started with. So what plays well politically does not play well in the court of law. And when you're 77 facing 536 years in combined charges, there's freedom for the rest of your life needs to be taking a paramount place.
And before we go, Andrew, that's a lot of years. What do you think is likely to happen here if Donald Trump were to be prosecuted? This goes to trial, a lot of counts in play, as you say. Do you believe that there's the likelihood of jail time?
I 100% believe that as it stands today, Donald Trump is going to jail. That does not take into account whether his attorneys can get suppression of the evidence. That does not take into account whether they can get charges dismissed. If they cannot, though, he will be going to jail in all likelihood based on sentencing guidelines. And even one count, he's turning 77 today, one count for 10 years is devastating to this guy. So I see major problems, and we haven't even talked about New York. We haven't talked about what may happen in Georgia. And don't mistake the fact that the federals, Jack Smith, could still bring charges. He could still bring charges about January 6th in Washington, D.C., and there's questions of whether Jack Smith is holding back bringing charges federally in New Jersey about the sharing of the documents. Page 3 of the indictment talks about Trump saying, see, look at these classified documents. That happened in Bedminster. That could still be charged there. It's not as a charge in this indictment, which is foreshadowing something else that could happen. I certainly see jail unless his criminal defense team works magic.
Attorney Andrew Lieb, legal political analyst at Lieb at Law. We thank you. WCBS News Time 11:38. Let's update traffic.